Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Please take your seats. We are here, my dear friends and colleagues, for a moment of triumph and celebration. A time of reflection, to be sure, but also a time to revel in the present and look to the future just over the horizon. The mandate that I was given 4 years ago was to break up the status quo that failed our residents for far too long, and to chart a new path, a new compact between the government and the governed. And that's what we did. We did it despite facing epic challenges of historic budget deficits, a global pandemic, the likes of which we had not seen in 100 years, a massive economic meltdown, civic unrest, and escalating violence following the murder of George Floyd. I sincerely mean what I said. Looking back, we have a lot to celebrate. To be clear, all of these challenges, many of them coming within a few months of each other, which resonated deeply, profoundly, tested us, and tested me personally in monumental ways. We all know the phrase attributed to the German philosopher Nietzsche, "What doesn't break you makes you stronger." We all could likely write a thesis on the many ways in which that observation has proven true, especially over these last 4 years. There were certainly times when the sheer number of challenges mounted on top of each other brought me to my knees. You see, when you literally look death in the eye, as I had to, and realize that the decisions that you make in the midst of a crisis will impact who lives, who dies, what businesses survive, which fail, and who has income and who doesn't, all of which were served up on my plate over and over again. These challenges pushed me closer to my faith, and through it all, I believe, made me a better leader. A battle-tested leader, to be sure, but I also hope and believe that it made me a better person. I wrapped myself up in resiliency, the resiliency that I saw over and over again all across Chicago. Resiliency in people facing incredible tragedy, like victims and survivors of gun violence. Resiliency in people who face a lifetime of roadblocks and wrong turns, like people living in neighborhoods that have been deprived of needed resources for as long as people have memory. Resiliency in the face of many Chicagoans to this day, and certainly through our darkest moments, who thank me for my service. My heart swells every time I hear it, and it propels me forward. I resolved that if these Chicagoans had faith and hope for a better tomorrow, I would draw my inspiration from them. How could I not? Lots of time and energy and ink has been spilt by the pundits and the media, obsessing about what four-letter word the mean can't get along with anyone mayor allegedly said. And let me tell you, my friends, the four-letter word that propelled me forward every single day of this incredible journey, one that I intoned every time that I needed to rise above the noise and the despair. That four-letter word was spelled H-O-P-E. Hope. I saw it, and importantly, I felt it in this city, in every neighborhood, in the eyes of children, our elders, of workers, our people who were touched by the work that we did, the details that we sweated, the resources we invested for the betterment of our entire city, our whole city. Not just the downtown, not just the north side, our whole city, and unapologetically so. My administration has been victorious in our efforts to plant seeds of equity and serve the city we all love so much. And the real story of this administration is told through the lives of the people that we served. Coming into office, I knew generations of Chicagoans, particularly Black and Latino communities, were hungry for resources and support from City Hall, a city hall that needed to see the entire city. My primary mandate was to put our residents first and to do the hard work to serve them, and so we got to it. And we did that by operationalizing equity in concrete, tangible ways. And let me remind everyone, equity is about enabling everyone to attain universally held standards for a good quality of life. When we work to achieve equity, what we really mean is we are looking at our history and the deep scars that systemic racism, machine politics, and disinvestment has left on our neighborhoods and our residents. Our city's history of neglect on the south and west sides has created barriers for our residents, impacting their access to education, good health, wealth, and so much more. More than anything, these barriers have created a deep-seated despair and sense of hopelessness in too many of our communities. That hopelessness and despair fuels the cycle of poverty. Our challenges weren't created overnight, and the solutions to solve them won't come overnight. But our administration created real change and planted seeds for transformation of our city to right these historic wrongs. Now, you know that I cannot stand up here in front of you, and particularly with a group of pastors in the house, and not take you to church for a minute. So indulge me. What we face in this city takes me to the story of Lazarus, found in the New Testament, John chapter 11, excuse me. And now we know the story of Lazarus. Lazarus had been dead for several days when Jesus learned of his passing. When Jesus arrived with his disciples in the town of Bethany, he encountered Lazarus' sister, Martha. And we know from verse 23 that Jesus told Martha, "Your brother will rise again." But Martha, like others, was doubtful. The Bible tells us that Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. His body had started to decompose and emit the smell of death. Lazarus was dead. All those around him and the surviving family had convinced themselves that nothing could be done. But Jesus, of course, knew better. He went to the cave, commanded that the stone be rolled back, and called upon Lazarus to rise from the dead. And what is the lesson for us? Through the power of faith and collective action, we can move the heavy stones, and yes, we can breathe new life into the people and places that have been left for dead. We have shown business and philanthropy that our neighborhoods cannot and should not be left for dead. That there are customers with buying power, and importantly, people of goodwill all around who have been toiling block by block for decades but need some extra support. No matter how hopeless we may feel at times, or how seemingly steep the mountain of challenges appears, using our collective power and our faith in the possible, we can work miracles, and we can give our communities new life. These are not just words. We prove that over and over again these last 4 years. Let's start with the pandemic. This once-in-a-lifetime global public health crisis absolutely humbled us and forced us to look humanity squarely in the eyes. I still remember the surreal feeling of learning about the city's first COVID case. I will never forget the daily vigil of watching the deadly contagion sweep across Asia to Europe and then to our coast. Its presence here in Chicago was inevitable. But that first case notification made time stand still for me, just for a moment. We faced unprecedented challenges over and over again that we exhausted our vocabulary to describe the enormity of the moment. The enormous, historical disparities laid bare by the pandemic were flashing like neon signs. We had a lot of heartbreaking decisions to make throughout the pandemic that required selflessness and service from all leaders, essential workers, and really every single Chicagoan. We understood the gravity of shutting down and shifting our economy, but we knew that our most important priority must always be keeping people safe. With the wisdom and guidance of CDPH Commissioner Dr. Allison Arwady, who's with us here today. Stand up, Allison. With Dr. Arwady's wisdom and guidance and her incredible team at CDPH, our city was able to learn a whole new vocabulary, social distancing and PPE, variants and strains. And all of us in city government tried to become junior epidemiologists, urging people to stay home and save lives. And when we saw the disparate impact on Black folks in terms of mortality and Latinos in terms of cases, with equity as our North Star, and standing with leaders from our most impacted communities, we stood up the Racial Equity Rapid Response Team, an unheard of collective and collaborative that put data and community intelligence at the center of our problem solving and solution development processes, organizing the city around what our partners knew we needed to do helped us save real lives. I also want to thank and recognize Candace Moore for her leadership. I want to thank Candace Moore for her leadership of those efforts and for her tireless work as the city's first ever Chief Equity Officer to change the way that the city does business so that we can ensure that everyone achieves the highest and best outcomes. We led our city through the shelter-in-place order, and when the time was right, we became the first big city in the nation to open safely. We had a solemn obligation and a dire urgency to save people's lives by getting to the root causes of inequity. And we took on the seemingly intractable, generations in the making problems that had shackled and laid low too many generations of Chicagoans. Taking on these challenges, even in the face of formidable odds, made us all the better for it. And I want to thank two other people whose names you probably don't associate with pandemic relief, but that's Samir Mayakar and Michael Fastnock. Of course, you know that both of these incredible leaders are responsible for fueling our incredible economic recovery. During COVID, Samir brought in the best consulting talent to help us understand the here and now and what the future would hold regarding this pandemic. Samir was also instrumental in setting up the temporary hospital at McCormick Place, and I think slept overnight there many days while it was in formation. So thank you, Samir, for your service. And to Michael, I am forever indebted for your very wise counsel and helping communicate with Chicagoans during the very scary times and making Stay Home, Save Lives a cause to rally behind. Thank you for your service. And what else did we take on with unflinching resolve? We put our fiscal house in order. I have to thank the financial dream team of Jenny, Susie, and Reshma. Oh, stand up, stand up. Come on. Because of their hard work, we leave office with a budget surplus, 13 rating upgrades, prepaying our pensions even. A job well done, ladies. And they taught me this. When we put our fiscal house in order, we have the resources we need to make powerful, transformative investments. This administration planted seeds for transformation in the form of concrete buildings, economic assistance, and expanded services. Along with our partners in organized labor, many of whom are here today, we passed the minimum wage to $15 an hour, the first municipality in the state to do so. We passed the most expansive fair scheduling ordinance in the country to make sure that particularly low-wage workers, and many of whom were women of color, had predictability and knew when they were going to be able to manage their money and their child care needs. And we reminded people that homes are also people's workplaces and that care workers, like my mother, deserve fair wages and safe workplaces too. And we began reforming the regressive fines and fees that kept working Chicagoans in a spiral of debt. And that was just in the first year, ladies and gentlemen. We were also able to increase the city's mental health budget by more than sevenfold, from a mere $12 million when we started to $89 million, providing mental health services in every single one of our 77 neighborhoods. Thank you again to Dr. Arwady, but a special thanks to Matt Richards and his team at CDPH. And because of the leadership of Marissa Navarro and her team at the Department of Housing, we made the single largest investment in affordable housing at $1 billion in the city's history. And because of the leadership of Angela Tovar and the environmental justice team, we made the largest investment in environmental justice in the city's history at $188 million. And as if there was any doubt, I will never stop telling the story of how we were able to marshal public, private, and philanthropic dollars to the tune of $2.2 billion in commitments to our South and West Side neighborhoods. It's clear to see that we got a lot done over the last 4 years. But that's not what this administration's story is all about. As I said at the beginning, our story is told through the people we served. Our story is told through residents like Valerie from Auburn Gresham, one of thousands of Chicagoans who struggled to pay her debts, and particularly her water bill. Rather than cut off residents' access to a resource as precious and vital as water, through our utility billing relief program, Valerie was one of 20,000 households under our administration that received relief totaling $33 million and counting. Valerie's water bill was reduced by 50%, and she stands to have her debt entirely forgiven, ensuring that she can always have access to this crucial city service and resource while not spiraling into further debt. Our story is also told through developers like Leon Walker, Cornelius Griggs, Guion Foreman, A.J. Patton, Tory Barrett, Louis Puig, Related Midwest, and so many others whose high-impact real estate developments on the south and the west sides have benefited from our Invest Southwest program and created thousands of jobs, housing units, and services for residents so they can achieve upward mobility in a thriving neighborhood. Our story is told through local business owners like Cecilia Cuff and Eric Williams, the co-owners of the Bronzeville Winery, who received a $250,000 neighborhood opportunity grant to help launch the business. And I also have to depart from my script and thank the folks at BMO. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Eric, for making sure that they had that extra bit of cash to get the job done. Thank you. After 1 year in business, Bronzeville Winery is flourishing, not only offering Bronzeville a great dining option, but also serving as a cultural incubator and bringing the community together. Cecilia and Eric are a shining example of what is possible when we empower residents to open businesses wherever they are and whoever they are when they choose. Our commitment to holistically addressing public safety is demonstrated through city leaders like Willette Benford, who I appointed to be our first ever Director of Reentry Services, and to ensure that Chicago is giving residents returning from incarceration a fair chance at a thriving life in our city. Willette herself is a returning resident who has dedicated her life's work to supporting people like her. And through this place of lived experience, she helped make Chicago a national leader in supporting returning residents. And you've heard me say this before, you can't talk about public safety without creating a pathway for those who are coming home to have fulfilled, legitimate lives in our society. We can't continue to perpetuate the permanent punishment cycle. Our story is told by residents like Aaron from South Shore, who battled with depression. And when he got to a point where he needed critical intervention and support the most, CDPH met him where he was and connected him with mental health care resources. And now through CDPH's mental health awareness campaign called Unspoken, Aaron and others like him can share their stories, helping Chicagoans not feel alone and know where to go when they need help. Our story can be told by the recipients of our Climate Infrastructure Fund grant that went to organizations like Plant Chicago, helping them to renovate a 115-year-old former firehouse into a community hub that will promote sustainability and efficiency in East Garfield Park. Sometimes we'd plant a seed and a bountiful harvest would grow. You might not have eaten from that harvest, but it fed and nourished someone. It might have fed someone who hadn't seen a harvest in a long, long time. And that's what this administration has been about, planting seeds of hope for transforming our future. When we empower the residents who have never had a voice or a seat at the table before and give them an opportunity to grow, these are the kind of amazing results we get. This is a lasting impact of our equitable policies and priorities we have created for our residents, businesses, and our neighborhoods. They say that history is written by the victors. And I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, all of us, individually and collectively, are the victors. Each of us has persevered through adversity, and we have given the full measure of ourselves to bend the moral arc of history toward justice here and now in Chicago. This is our legacy. And I think, considering recent events, Chicago is going to stay in this lane of progress for a long time. I'm more optimistic about our city's future than ever. I'm optimistic because of the work my administration has done to make transformative investments in our neighborhoods and our residents. And I'm optimistic because over the last 4 years, we did everything that we could to maintain and further Chicago's status as a global, thriving, and welcoming city. But I'm also optimistic about the future of this great city because of you and Chicagoans like you. There are daily threats to who we are and what we must become for our families and our children to thrive. But we have faced and vanquished those threats over and over again because that's what the moment demanded. Our residents have inspired me every day. On the days when I was weary and my spirit was low, meeting residents and learning about their hopes and dreams motivated me to keep my head up and to keep working. Time and again, I've seen residents and neighbors contribute to their communities in amazing ways. And I'll say to the media, tell those stories of Chicago. They exist, they're there, tell them. I've seen community leaders who have been serving for generations work with such determination and conviction to bring their vision to life, no matter how long the road ahead. And to borrow a phrase from a friend, these aren't Johnny-come-latelys. These are people who are deeply embedded in their communities and love them through thick and thin. I've seen business leaders and the private sector take huge bets on Chicago, even when the public narrative told them not to. Chicago's residents, neighborhoods, and businesses will always, always work to uplift each other, because that's just who we are. When a great fire lays our city to ashes and rubble, we build a sturdier, stronger city. When the brutal winters chill us to the bone, we put on another layer and we forge ahead, dreaming of spring and summer, but never stopping even in the face of nature's tempest. When city government and the private sector disinvest in our neighborhoods for decades, we call upon leaders to step forward and steer the ship in another direction. Every resident from every neighborhood wants the same things for our city. They want to feel safe in their homes and their communities. They want to have every opportunity to lead happy, prosperous lives, and that they want those opportunities available at their fingertips. And they want to see their beloved hometown, the third largest and number one greatest city in the country, succeed. Regardless of who comes and goes on the fifth floor, Chicago is going to continue working together to achieve the city that we all want to work and live in. My friends, it's been the honor of a lifetime and a privilege to do this work with you these last 4 years. Just as it's impossible for me to list all the achievements we've made together, it's impossible for me to thank every single person and organization that I've had the pleasure of working with. But I'm going to try because you're all here with me. To the partners from the city and region who are our critical collaborators, thank you for coming to the table and making a contribution. To the fellow electeds that I've stood with and worked with, thank you for your counsel and your partnership. To the residents who engaged with us and informed us, held us accountable, and worked with us, thank you for contributing your time and efforts to the betterment of your city. And to the mayor's office staff, the hardest working team ever to have the privilege of working on the 4th and 5th floor. And to my gifted, smart, and hardworking cabinet, led by the greatest chief of staff, Sybil Madison. I just have to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to Kelsey. She's hiding in the corner. Thank you to Kelsey for everything. And I also extend thanks to the city employees across our city. I cannot thank you enough for your tireless commitment and hard work these last 4 years to leave an incredible, indelible impact on our city. The great poet, James Weldon Johnson, penned a poem that has now become known as the Black National Anthem. And this stanza always makes my heart swell with pride, and I take it as a clarion call. I quote, "Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on, because our victory will be won. Until then, we must persevere. The work has not been in vain, and indeed we have an obligation and responsibility to break through the noise. Ignore the people who count us out every day. We must continue to carry the baton forward. To all of you, do continue serving our city and working towards equity, inclusion, safety, fairness, and vibrancy in every neighborhood. I will be here as Private Citizen Lightfoot, continually rooting for you and every resident of our city. My work is not done. I will roll up my sleeves in another form and fashion, but continue on. Thank you all so incredibly much for being with Amy and Viv and I on this most extraordinary journey. God bless you, and God bless our city. Thank you.